Welcome back to the channel, everybody. I don't know what to say. I need another project. Like, I need a hole in my head, or at least another hole. We still have the 8 series that we're waiting for some parts and tools. I can't see it, but inside the garage, my E30. And now we got another E30 convertible. Difference is this is actually not my car. Again, this is actually somebody that I met through parting out the red smashed up vert. So he actually bought the top, which is on there right now. You can see it's looking really good. Fits really well. All the weather strippings are holding up. And he actually bought the interior bits as well. So mostly just the seats. Interior looks really great in here. So you're gonna be asking me, why is it here? Well, primarily he needs the timing belt service done, timing belt water pump. He also asked me to kind of look it over, see what else it might need. This has been his daily lately. And it runs a little poorly, so we're gonna kind of take a look at that, see what's going on. My computer is charging up, so I don't have a scan tool available. Hopefully we'll be able to scan that here shortly and kind of see what's going on. I'll probably also smoke test it, just make sure that there's not any vacuum leaks. 325i 5-speed convertible. It's in pretty good shape. He is going to send it out for paint here soon, but we're just trying to get it running a little better, get the maintenance done. First glance, I don't see anything right out of the gate. Does look like a new starter on it. I checked the intake boot, that seems pretty solid, but we'll smoke it again just to be sure. Radiator looks like it has some signs of leakage at some point. I don't see any big leaks up top, but we'll dive into that. We'll get this up on ramps. I need up on ramps to do the timing belt anyways, because we had to drain the coolant, take the belts off. The power steering AC belts are all from underneath. I think I'll go ahead and put it up on the ramps and we can take a look around. All right, well, we're underneath the E30. First glance, not too bad. Oil pan looks fairly dry except for maybe the oil filled plugs. Got a little drip on it. You can see it there. He said he just had his E3 rack put in it, but still needs the alignment done. He says he gets a little bit of memory steer from it. Looks like he's got new control arms on it as well, which is good. Let's see. I don't see anything really screaming out at me. Looking at his exhaust, so he wants to change his exhaust up, and I can see why. It looks like it's basically straight piped from the headers all the way back to a muffler. So I don't blame him for that. It does sound not so great. A little bit wet over here on the subframe. Let's see. Looks like from this power steering hose. We'll check that out. See if we can maybe tighten it up. Make sure there's not a crack in it. And make sure those fittings on the rack are tight as well, because like I said, they just put a rack in it. So we want to make sure that everything's tight. It's sway bar length. The boot is cracked on it. Not the end of the world, but we'll recommend that to them as well. Let's see. We're going to do those in pairs. That one's cracked and doesn't look like there's any grease in it. The belts look decent. I'll see more when I actually get them off. So the power steering, I think that one does actually loosen from the top side, but the just big fat bolt right here, that's the adjuster for the AC. So we need to get that undone. Of course, we got to drain coolant out to do the timing belt water pump. So I'll probably, I don't know, I might pull the radiator out just to give me a little bit more elbow room. It doesn't look like I really see anything else going on underneath here, so that's good. Yeah. So let's see how hot this thing still is. She's still pretty crispy. So I'm probably not going to start this until tomorrow when it's cold. I just don't feel like burning myself on the coolant. It's gonna take a while for it to cool off. So I might grab the Ventus and we'll quick smoke this and see if there's any intake leaks. All right, so I've got the airbox out of the way. There's just 2 bolts here and here. There's just 2 10mm nuts to undo here, the clamp on the intake boot, and the airbox just pulls out as one assembly. So I've got the intake adapter, the Autoline Ventus smoke machine. You guys have seen me use this before. It's really simple. You just fill up with the fluid, charge it, and you hit the button, and pretty instantly you get smoke. So we're just gonna plug it into this intake adapter here. I'm gonna hold the throttle blade open just to speed things up a little bit. And we'll start looking for smoke. And hopefully we don't see any. Actually, I'm seeing it already. I saw some smoke. Here. Grab a flashlight here. I keep seeing little wafts of smoke, but not a source yet. Definitely around this throttle body area. So it's definitely from underneath the intake. I'm sure you guys can't really see it on here, but it's coming up through this area. Trying to see what is down there that could be leaking. Oh, I see it. There's some vacuum line that's underneath the intake going down. I don't know if I can get you guys in there. You see where that connector is that my light's shining on? From that going up, there's a vacuum line, and that's leaking. So that could definitely be our source of vacuum leak and why it's running like crap, running so rich. So we'll need to investigate that further. But on that, I'm not seeing any other leaks. I'm gonna do my other check here. And I like to do our other check here, see if we got smoke coming out of the crankcase yet. A little bit. I think that'll be part of the plan, is to replace that hose. That should hopefully address some of the running issues. All right, so now we got that all set. To disassemble, you can just let the intake adapter deflate, pull that out. See, we had her pretty full of smoke coming out of the intake boot there. Looking over this area, I don't really see anything. I mean, it's really wet coming down from this reservoir. So I'm probably gonna recommend we just replace the reservoir and those lines. If you remember, there's a filter inside this reservoir that is not serviceable, and they're really dirt cheap. I mean, I'm talking maybe 15-20 bucks. It's really cheap, and that's just power steering hose cut by the length, nothing special. So actually I do see that's an OEM crimped clamp there, an OEM clamp up here, but I'm gonna recommend replacing that. In order to start doing our work here, I'm gonna need to take the fan shroud off. Looks like there's a clip on each side. Then we'll undo that fan clutch. That should slide out. I might start draining it. Also, when I was poking around in here, so there's this little cap right here, probably like a little bleeder that was loose, and that's probably the source of that leak. So I'll just make the owner aware of that as well. I'm gonna go ahead and start stripping some of the accessories off. Again, here on the alternator, you got an adjuster here. You need to undo that. You always want to make sure you undo this 13mm first. You don't undo this 19. That's got teeth on it that glide along a track, and that's what provides your tension. If you start cranking on this with it tightened, you're just gonna strip the teeth off. So always back the 13 off first, then you can start undoing that so you can rotate out of the way, get the belts off. Power steering, I believe, was the same way. It actually looks like, yeah, I can see it down there. I don't know if you can, but that's the adjuster bolt. So we'll get that loosened up. Oh, it's definitely wet down there. So that is definitely the source of the leak. I don't see it wet around this temp sensor. Yeah, I can see it leaking right around there. So, all right, I think I'll start doing some of that, getting this stuff out of the way. I don't know that we're gonna make a ton of progress today. Oh, that is stone cold. I bet we got a bad thermostat. Cause that's warm, that's warm. This is stone cold. So yeah, we got a bad thermostat as well. All right, so we got the radiator out of the way. I just drained it by removing Mrs. Peacock from the bottom. And it looks like they zip tied the radiator down to that support. And down below here, the hose is zip tied. So I'm thinking the whatever mounting feet are supposed to be on it aren't there anymore. We'll take a look at that and make a recommendation. And you can see we just have a lot more room for activities now. You got more zip tie up here, so I have to take that off. I did look in the box of parts he brought. We do have a new thermostat, so we'll be good to go doing that. I think all I'm going to do the rest of today is just maybe get the belts out of the way, and maybe I'll throw that thermostat in. I'd like to let it cool down a little further before I really monkey with it. And I'm also going to lose light here shortly. So yeah, other than that, everything looks pretty good. I don't see any signs that this was in a major collision or anything. Yeah, there might be something dented way down there at the bottom. I don't know. But it's like pulled out, which is weird. So, I mean, there could be some prior damage down there. We'll also need to get the cap and rotor out of the way. It's really nice. There's just 3 nuts or 3 bolts, and the whole thing flops out of the way. Gives you lots of room. We might pull that upper hose off too. Yeah, that'll kind of give us a little more room. We're still a little full up here, so we're gonna have to keep the drain pan under the car for now, so we don't make a mess. Also, when you are taking these fans off, remember they are reverse threads, so lefty tighty, righty loosey. This was actually barely on. I just touched it with the tool and it spun right off. So here's your 2 tools here. You got one for the nut, and then you put this on one of the nuts on the pulley that holds it in place so you can back it off. But you also want to look your fans over, make sure that they're not cracked, there's no missing blades, because you know, these things, if they come apart, it's going to make a mess. You know, put dents in your hood and take out other things inside the engine bay, so we don't want that. But that one looks pretty good, so I think we're all right. And here you can see again, it was leaking from right. All right, so you can see we got the belts out of the way. Like I said, just loosen those adjusters, sling the stuff out of the way. One thing I did notice as well, whoever's in here last, there's a nut right here. Really can't see it, for the adjuster bracket on the alternator. Totally loose, backed off. Got the thermostat out, went ahead and cleaned up the sealing surface on the housing. I'll use green SOS pad, use a little bit of the coolant as lubricant. You don't need to go hog wild, you're just trying to get the gunk off. You don't want to go so far as to remove material. And here you can see on the housing as well, same thing. Just use the green SOS pad and some coolant as lubricant, and you just lay the pad down and go flat across, and it works really well. Again, doesn't need to be perfect. The staining is fine. You don't need to get rid of all that. You just don't want any high spots. You just want a nice flat surface. The new thermostat here is a Molly TX2780D, BMW part number 70807797. So we'll put that in. And a reminder, the O-ring goes on the outside of the thermostat, not the inside. So we want to make sure that's in place. Get our thermostat slid in here. You just want to be careful with that O-ring because you don't want it to come out of place. So I'm just trying to set it. And we just need to put the housing back on in the right orientation, which I think was this way. Yep. And a hint to that is this bolt on the top is your bleeder. So when we go to refill it, we're going to back that bleeder out and get the air out of the system. That'll be your high point of the cooling system. So we're just going to get those 3 10mm in there, torque them down. We're good to go. And I think I'm going to call this section of the video it here. And I'll pick you back up tomorrow when we finish this assembly. Tomorrow we'll have to pop that distributor cap off, the pulleys off, the trigger wheel on the crank, and then from there we can set it to top dead center, and then further take the covers off, water pump, the tensioner, and then finally the pulley. So we'll see you tomorrow. All right guys, we're back. It's a new day. It's a little cooler out, but we're gonna motor through it. I got the cap off. It might be hard to see, but probably could use a replacement. This is an OE Bosch. I don't see a date code on it. Might be under that plastic cover. I'll probably recommend to replace it. See the rotor button, again, kind of corroded. So it's probably due for a replacement. Again, I'll recommend it to them. It's easy to replace at any time. So next steps here, getting this timing belt off. We got to get the water pump pulley off. We got to get this front pulley off. Break the crank bolt off as well. I'm just going to use the starter trick for that. Again, you just put a breaker bar on the end of this, jam it up either against the ground or a frame rail, bump the starter, and she'll back off. Now we're not going to totally remove it because we actually need the trigger wheel to rotate this around and get it set to the timing marks. We'll also need to pull this upper timing cover as well. That'll give us access to the upper timing mark as well. So I'm gonna go ahead and start pulling some of that stuff apart, and I'll bring you back. All right, you can see I got the upper cover out of the way. You can see the top of the cam belt there. This angle's not so great at it. Got my breaker bar with the 22mm socket, and you can see on this crank gear here, someone did paint it orange, and there's a little mark on the front lower cover. You see that orange mark? That's where you want to be. And then you want to come around to the cam side. And this is going to be hard to see because it's, you know, basically you see the little yellow mark on the cam, which is right here. You want to line that up with this line here on the head. And again, someone paint marked it yellow. It's sorry, it's hard to get a good angle in here, but they are lined up. You want to check both because you can be 180 out on the crank and the cam's not timed properly. Once you do get the new timing belt on, tension set, you're going to roll it over at least 2 complete revolutions just to make sure everything stayed where it needs to be. So my next step here, I need to get that trigger wheel off the crank, but we need to get that gear off in order to get the belt off. So that'll come off, and then that lower timing cover will come off. It's just a 10mm bolt. You can see the head sticking out because I've already loosened it and taken a look. And then there's a stud that it rides on. That's actually where the alternator bracket goes over. So you want to take that off and pull that out. And here I can kind of show you these adjustment teeth that I was talking about before. So you see this bolt has got a bunch of teeth on it. You want to check to make sure that those are all in good shape, and the teeth on the bracket looks good as well. I'm going to take this and put it in the cheek poker just to clean it up, so we got real nice good engagement when we go back to tighten things up. I'll probably take the bolt out of the power steering pump and the AC compressor as well, just to clean them up. Again, to make sure that there's no rounded teeth. Hopefully we can loosen the tensioner, get the belt off, pull the tensioner off, then we can pull the water pump off, put a new water pump on it. Let me get going at that. Sorry I'm not doing live filming. It's just really hard to get any good angles in there. This space is pretty cramped. And I'm also cold, so it takes a little longer. I'm just trying to get through this and get it done for the customer. All right, got a little more progress. So I was kind of silly. For some reason, I was thinking that the trigger wheel is held on by the main crank bolt. It's not, so I didn't have to actually disturb anything. It is indexed. There is a, you see over here on the trigger wheel, there is a spot that holds it, indexes it, so it's in the right spot, but it's actually not held in by the main crank bolt. It's held in by the pulley. So with the crank bolt in place and the timing set, it was actually fine. Got the tensioner off. That is good to go. So now I've went and I pulled out the new Graph water pump. You see here, this is a nice Graph one. The one I just bought for the 850, it's got a metal impeller. This is a nice cast impeller, and I like that better. Unfortunately, we have an issue. It's gonna be hard for you guys to see, but this water pump has the main upper hose, and because this earlier car, the tank is mounted over here on the fender on the right side instead of on the left side by the air box. This is actually a different water pump, and you see down here there's another neck. So I'm gonna have to ask the customer what he wants me to do. The pump feels good. I don't feel any play in the bushing, and it spins real nice. Someone's definitely done this before. This tensioner spins real nice. And something you see, guys, here, when I take stuff apart, I try to lay things out, put bolts, you know, with what went to what, so I don't lose them. Getting here in the timing cover, because they're a little different. One's a 13, one's a 10. Just to kind of keep things organized over here. You know, the alternator bracket with the alternator bolt, lower timing cover with a lower timing bolt. Try to keep things organized. So here is the old timing belt. It is a Conti-Tech, same as we're putting on, the Continental Conti-Tech. It's a decent belt. This one made in Mexico, but it looks in good shape. So it's been done before, but it's good we're doing it because these things can snap, and when they do, well, you know, two objects can't occupy the same space at the same time. I'm also not going to go through the cam and crankshaft seals. I mean, you can see there is a little bit of oil, but I think it's old. There's nothing new, and it's coming up high, so it's probably an old valve cover leak more than front seals. The lower timing cover, you actually have to unbolt part of the oil pan, so now you've introduced another possible leak in the future. Yeah, I'm gonna figure out what he wants to do, and we'll go from there. All right, so I talked to the customer, and basically we decided to go ahead and run the existing water pump. Like I said, there's no noise, there's no leak. For now, I think we're good. So you can see I actually do have the timing belt on. The first step is putting the tensioner back on. You probably can't see it, but right at the top where my finger is, there's a spring that goes from the tensioner over to the water pump. You need to make sure you get that in spot. Then you pry the tensioner all the way towards the right side of the car, lock it down, and then get your belt on. So you need to take some care on the bottom crank pulley sprocket. You want to make sure you get it all the way in there. So you just kind of feed it in, push it in with your fingers as you go. And then it gets in. And what I like to do is I run it up this side and I hold as much tension as I can so there's no slack in the bottom. And then it's on this balance shaft sprocket. Engage that in the teeth, then continue to pull tension up on the belt, up and over the cam. Again, so there's no slack in that belt. Get it wrapped around the cam, then come down, loop it over the tensioner here, and then the next step here is we got to loosen up the tensioner pulley. It'll come out, put tension on the belt, tighten that down, and this stud as well, and the time belt should be set. Then we need to just roll her over twice, make sure our marks line up. You'll see someone actually marked the bottom piece on the crank here as well, and I think that lines up, but I'll probably just throw the sprocket on just to be double sure. I don't like, trust but verify, so we'll throw that on real quick, just make sure that that's set. We'll roll her over a couple times, make sure that cam and crank are properly timed. And I'm going to start buttoning this thing back up. All right, so remember I said trust but verify. Without the trigger wheel on, that mark does actually line up to a groove on the lower timing cover, not this outer lower timing cover. So if you weren't paying attention as you're doing this, you could potentially get it wrong. So right now I do have it lined up on that mark, and let's see, I think I'm actually 180 out yet. So yeah, I'm 180 out. So let me roll around one more time. You also see the belt started to find its home. When we first started, it was right up at the edge. Sorry for all the shaking, but I am battling compression because all the spark plugs are in. So here we come back around, and that looks about right. The lights are dying. Yep, you can see we're lined up. I know the advantage point here isn't great, that you can't really see that it is, but it's right on. So we can finish buttoning this up. We can go ahead and put the upper timing cover back on. I'm going to clean and wipe that up real quick. We get the crank pulley back on, torque everything down. Then like I said, I just got to clean up these bolts and hardware, throw that back on. So there's probably still another good hour's worth of work. I'll be thoroughly cold if I don't take a break, so I'm just going to go ahead and get back in it. I'll bring you back as we get things buttoned up a little further. All right, we are back together. As far as I can tell, I don't have any extra parts or nuts or bolts, so that's always a plus. Yeah, everything went back together pretty well. Like I said, we're going to keep an eye on the leak over here on the radiator, make sure that there aren't any issues. Got the belts on. You can see here the adjuster's real nice and clean on this alternator now, even the bracket, putting the cheek poker. Same thing on the power steering pump. Cleaned up all that hardware, wire brushed in car the bracket, and same on the AC compressor. So it's a lot easier to put the belt spec on with everything cleaned up, not all full of gunk. You're also not going to strip stuff out, which is good. From here, I can't actually start it yet because we got to replace that valve, and I don't know if I can get you in here again, or that hose I should say, it's on this valve. You see the bottom of it right here. I don't think it's going to focus, but I'm going to pop that out real quick. I think the hose is pretty brittle on it. I think that was the source of our vacuum leak. We'll do that, re-smoke it, make sure there's no other leaks, and then we should be just about done. Then obviously we've got to refill the cooling system, bleed it out as well, but other than that I think we're all set. And I'm going to go ahead and just fire it up real quick, just make sure before we move on to something new. There we go. You hear the big hole in the exhaust. Yeah, she's runs good. I don't hear, I don't know what that noise was, but I don't hear any other weird noises. Something's about rubbing, I think. So let's go check, make sure that there's nothing rubbing. Fan's not hitting anything. I don't see the belts hitting anything. And that could just be a noise it makes. See anything? So I'm gonna go ahead and work on that other piece. Get that out. Yeah, it's not hitting this shroud. That was a weird sound. But yeah, let me go ahead and pop that out, switch it out, and hopefully that'll take care of our vacuum leak. All right, got that piece of hose replaced. This is actually what it is. and sure enough, it's torn. You can see how weather cracked it is, if it'll actually focus. There we go. So definitely need to be replaced. Just goes over this check valve. Looks like it goes down to the charcoal canister. So I got our Ventus over here from Autoline Pro. I love this thing. I keep saying that. I'll make sure there's a link in the description for it. I got the intake adapter on there. Let's fire it up. We should see smoke pretty instant. Oh, there we go. Got smoke already. And hopefully we don't see any more smoke. We'll open the throttle blade, kind of fill that intake track up a little faster. And by golly, I'm not seeing anything. I saw it pretty darn quick the last time, so I think that's good. I'm gonna just smoke it for a couple, another 30 seconds or so to a minute. We'll pop the intake back on. I'm not seeing any smoke, so I think we got that licked. I got the intake back in. Let's fill it up with some coolant and fire this thing back up, bleed the air out of the system, and we should be good to go. All right, as you can probably hear, she's running. Temp just about right in the middle where it needs to be. Might be a little on the high side, might have a little air bubble still in it. We'll work on that. You hear how loud the exhaust is, so I'm gonna back away a little so you can hear me. But she's running really good. That strange sound I heard when we started up is actually the exhaust fouling out on something. It's rubbing on something, making that vibration noise. So good to know it wasn't anything up in the engine bay. But I'm gonna call this one done for now. I might scan it, just see if there's any codes in there. It is still off idle, a little rough, but it started right up, which is better than it did before. So I'm sure that vacuum leak has not been helping things, but I'm going to recommend him doing the cap and rotor, because those are pretty crispy. You know, maybe plugs and wires. You know, I don't know the history on all that stuff. So on that, I'm going to call this project done. Nice little weekend project, something you guys can do at home. Pretty easy. There's really no special tools, just basic socket set, screwdrivers, pry bar. I guess really the only special tool was the fan clutch tool. That, you know, it's 15-20 bucks on Amazon. And then, you know, optional, my smoke machine from Autoline. But that's not necessary for all the work that we did. But it was helpful to find that leak, so that vacuum leak. So like I said, I'm gonna call this one done, let the customer know it's all set to go, and I appreciate you guys watching. We'll see you in the next one.